Welcome to Loghouse Farm. It was just over a year ago that we decided to start a YouTube channel, so I wanted to take a look back and see what we've accomplished in that time. Now, calling this a farm is a bit of a stretch. We do have a few chickens and we grow some vegetables for our own table. So we don't do a lot of actual farming, mostly we make stuff. The very first video we released was about the chickens. We had recently acquired 8 new baby chicks, so I put together a video with some details on how to care for new hatchlings, including what supplies you'll need to get started, what to feed them, and some general cleanliness advice. Once the new brood was big enough to make the move outside, I built a mini coop for them. The idea behind the mini coop was to give them a safe place to grow, while still having them close to the other hens. It's not wise to introduce new chicks to an established flock when the chicks are too small. Many don't know this, but chickens can be very cruel. If the new chicks are not big enough to hold their own in the flock, then they may be injured or killed by the other chickens. The new chickens had all they needed, so now it was time to focus on some gardening. I'd built a greenhouse a while back, and we wanted to add some raised beds as well. Somewhere we can transition plants out of the greenhouse when they're ready. I wanted to try some elevated garden beds, something that's a little easier on the back. Most raised beds are not that high off the ground, so maintaining the garden can be rough on the back. These ones are made from construction grade lumber, so they're less expensive, and they're about waist level, so weeding is easier. While I was working on the raised beds, I kept looking at the chicken coop and thinking, I should really finish off the siding. So that's what I did next. After building the coop, I put off doing the siding for a long time. My thought was, the chickens don't care if their house has siding, but turns out that my wife does. It was a big job, but it was worth it in the end. I think it looks much better now. I've also done a couple other major upgrades to the coop. I added some PVC feeders to make feeding a little easier. Then I automated the watering for the chickens. I added a rain barrel and ran some PVC tubing into the coop and then attached these watering cups. Now for most of the year we don't have to worry about making sure the chickens have water. In the past, each night and every morning we used to come out and open or close the chicken door to let the chickens out. But adding this automated door has changed all that. Now the door opens at first light and closes automatically when it's dark. All of those changes have greatly reduced the work involved in keeping chickens. Since it was still summer and the days were warm, I worked on adding a new fire pit to the backyard, and then made a couple of side tables to go with the chairs. Now it was time to get focused on the barn. We have this old horse barn and it had great potential. My plan was to build a workshop in there, but first I wanted to change this small room at the front into a pantry. So I built a great big shelf and then moved some stuff around to make it work a bit better for us. Back then the barn was all wide open, and the space I used as my shop was a bit of a mess. So I made a cart for my shop vac to help deal with all the dust. At that time I was also starting to think about getting things a little more organized. That's why I made the drill docking and charging station. This thing has been great for holding all the drills and brad nailers in one place, with some storage for all the bits and pieces that go along with them. By now, fall was starting to get close, and my dream of converting the barn into a shop was about to come true. The plan was to build the wall across the middle of the barn and insulate half of it, so I'd be able to work there during the winter months. I also needed to close off this big barn door and install a proper door in the place of this small sliding door. These two doors weren't meant to keep out the elements, or the spiders. I ended up building a wall across the opening of the big door, and on the outside it still looks the same, but no longer functions as a door. Once I had that shop all closed in, I got right to work on the new French cleat wall. This is the heart of my shop. I know the table saw is usually called the heart of the shop, but the French cleat wall may be like the second heart. I really use it a lot. Just about every commonly used tool has some kind of holder to attach it to the wall. The drill docking station mounts to the wall as well, and all of this is right beside the workbench, so I can just turn and grab whatever I need. Cleaning up is also a lot easier because everything is right there. The bench that I made is super sturdy and mobile, so I can move it around to clean under it, or just get it out of the way if I need to. The new shop also got a new way to store lumber. I made a rolling cart so that I can place it right up against the wall to save space. And if I need things off the back, then I can just roll it out to make access easy. The cart has room for plywood and other sheet goods on the back. Long thin lumber like 2x4s can go in the middle. And the bin on the front holds all the shorter stuff. It's a lot of weight though, so I bought some really large 5-inch wheels for it. If you ever end up making one of these, make sure you don't buy small wheels. The new crosscut sled has been a great addition to the new shop as well. The miter saw doesn't get much use anymore because the crosscut sled can do most of the cuts that I would use the miter saw for, and it does a better job of it. One of the biggest changes in the barn, apart from the new shop, was the new stairs to the loft. The old way of getting into the loft was a little bit sketchy. Getting things to and from the attic with the old stairs was actually kind of dangerous. So I tried building my first set of stairs, and I was pleased with how it turned out. Stairs are a bit overwhelming at first, but with a little research, it's not too bad. A new tool arrived in the shop just in time for Christmas. A bit more of a modern kind of tool. The SnapMaker is a 3D printer with a laser etcher and a CNC machine. Each of the functions are kind of entry level. The CNC is not very powerful, and neither is the laser cutter, but you can still get a lot done with them. The 3D printer portion is really quite good, but it can be difficult to level such a large bed. I have made a lot of interesting things with this machine, like soap dishes, coasters, crib boards, and a bunch of tool holders for the French cleat wall. Another new addition is the bandsaw. I've always wanted one of these, and this one is working out very well so far. One of the most unique projects I worked on this year was the puzzle easel. It was a gift for my mother-in-law to make doing puzzles a little easier on her back. The easel holds the puzzle at a more comfortable angle. And if you're not yet done with your puzzle, but want to move it out of the way, then you can put the cover on it, and fold it up, and tuck it under a couch or bed until you're ready to work on it again. The barn has seen a lot of changes so far, but there was at least one more big change coming. That was the pottery studio. The studio was a lot like building the shop, but on a smaller scale. Now my wife has a nice warm and quiet place to work on her pottery. She's made a lot of amazing things in the studio so far, and many of them are available on our Etsy shop. With the studio done, I could turn my attention back to the shop. I built an enclosure for the SnapMaker and vented it to the outside, so the smoke from the laser etcher doesn't fill the shop. It also helps to keep the airborne dust down when using the CNC. To help with all the other dust in the shop from other sources, I also installed an air filter. The new air filter will help to reduce the airborne dust created by things like the new sander. This sander has been great, but it doesn't do a very good job of dust collection. The wall I built that covers the old barn door now has a new set of cabinets in front of it. These cabinets have been great for clearing out some of the junk around the shop. Slowly but surely, the shop is getting more and more organized and easier to work in. With dust control in mind, I built this downdraft sanding table and bought a Festool sander because of its dust collection capabilities. The table has a vacuum under it and the top is filled with holes. I just put down a bit of this shelf liner to keep the wood from slipping around, and then while I'm sanding, the sander's collecting dust and the table pulls down whatever the sander missed. I also added a few drawers for storage and some French cleats above it so I can store anything that I need close by. They say if you buy a 3D printer, you'll likely buy another one before too long, and in my case that turned out to be true. I bought a Prusa printer and spent a couple of days putting it together. But it was worth all the work because now I'm very familiar with how everything goes together for those times when I needed to fix or replace something. This printer wouldn't do too well in the dusty shop. It has greased bearings that are not sealed, so they'd get pretty gummed up with dust, unless the printer had an enclosure. So I designed an enclosure for it using SketchUp and then built it here in the shop. The shop is really coming together at this point, so I can start making other new and interesting things, like bedside trays, charcuterie boards, cutting boards, beverage caddies, and whatever else I can think of. I'd really like to say thanks to all my subscribers and anyone who watches my videos. It's been a really fun year for me. Learning how to make videos and figuring out how to film all the work has been a great learning experience so far. Hopefully, the videos have improved over the year, and hopefully you'll all stick around and see what's in store for year number 2. If you think I've earned it, please feel free to subscribe. And if you'd like to, you can help support the channel with the affiliate links in the description below, or by visiting our Etsy shop. Click here if you're new to woodworking and want to learn more about getting started.